Christmas surprise. My billionaire son revealed his 8K allowance. My DIL's shocking reaction was, the smell of Mary's homemade apple pie wafted through the tight-knit suburban neighborhood, a scent that promised warmth and joy. The twinkling lights on the tree hung delicately in the living room, and the excitement of another family Christmas filled the air. Mary, a 62-year-old woman known for her kindness and grit, stood at the counter, her heart full as she prepared for the gathering. She looked forward to sharing stories, laughter, and the love she had instilled in her family. But what would happen next was nothing Mary could have anticipated. As everyone settled around the dinner table, her son Jake, the pride of the family who had risen from humble beginnings to become a self-made billionaire, surprised everyone with a shocking revelation. He gave himself an $8,000 monthly allowance. The room fell silent, the clinking of silverware now frozen in time. That Mary's heart sank as she caught a glimpse of Lisa, Jake's wife, who had always valued simplicity and integrity. Lisa's face paled, disbelief written all over her features. $8,000 a month? She whispered, as though the words themselves weighed heavily. A mix of confusion and despair lit up her eyes, and Mary felt that familiar tightening in her chest. Could this truly be happening during their Christmas celebration? As the conversation unraveled, tension replaced laughter. Family members exchanged glances, unsure how to process Jake's declaration. Mary, feeling the weight of their shared values pressing down, listened as the debate sparked around her. What does money even mean? Questioned Jake's sister, her brow furrowed. Is success just about the numbers? You don't have to live like that, do you, Jake? Around the table, voices rose and fell, mirroring the heat of their arguments, each emotion building like the steam from Mary's pie cooling on the countertop. Just as the clock struck 7, the ambience shifted. I can't believe you would flaunt that kind of privilege. Lisa's voice trembled. Mary's eyes widened, and she interjected, trying to protect as tensions threatened to engulf the spirit of the season. But Jake, what about the values we raised you with? Where's the humility? Her voice cracked, echoing the worries she held. They were grappling with an unsettling realization. Wealth was creating a wall. Feeling cornered, Jake fought to protect his identity, to articulate the values he still cherished. But the answers eluded him amid the chaos. Emotion washed over him, the pride he'd built atop hard work now intertwining with a sense of shame, a fracture in the heart of his family. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the uncomfortable silence enveloped them, Mary wiped tears from her eyes, drawing on decades of wisdom. We've always faced challenges together, she said, her voice soothing yet firm. It's love, unity, and support that hold us together, not the money we make. In that moment, Jake realized this Christmas could redefine them. With the room charged with emotion, could a gesture of generosity still shift the balance? Or had the rift created by wealth forever altered their family's bonds? Only time would tell. The night hung heavy with unresolved questions, as each heart anticipated a reckoning that lingered just out of reach. Mary's gentle voice filled the room, but Jake sensed a storm brewing in the silence. He had never intended to drive such a wedge on a night meant for celebration. The pain in his mother's eyes made his heart ache. Mom, I didn't mean to upset anyone, he began, his throat tight. I thought you'd be proud of what I've built. Proud? Yes, she replied softly, but not at the cost of everything we believed in. The weight of her words hung between them, both a blessing and a challenge. Jake glanced at Lisa, desperately searching for understanding. But her eyes told a different story. She felt trapped, standing at the edge of a chasm widening by the minute. Jake, it's not about pride, she said, her voice steadier now, tinged with resolve. It's about what truly matters. Can't you see how your values have shifted? The entire family watched, each person feeling the pendulum swing between love and confusion. Jake squeezed his eyes shut for a moment, willing himself to find clarity amid the chaos. Money had always been a means to an end for him: freedom, security, a life away from struggle. But did it have to come at the cost of their familial bond? Maybe I've lost sight of that, Jake admitted, his voice cracking. I just wanted to be successful so you all would never worry again. Her face softened at her son's vulnerability, but the tension remained thick, a tangled rope threatening to snap. Success isn't just about dollars and cents, Jake's sister interjected, her voice calm but firm. If anything, it's about our relationships. Look at us. We're in a mess tonight, and that hurts. Mary noticed the flicker of understanding in Jake's eyes. It was dawning on him that the true measure of success was not in his bank balance, but in how much love he could cultivate. And just then, a small voice piped up from the corner of the room. It was Annie, Jake and Lisa's 7-year-old daughter, her innocent face a beacon of hope amidst the heaviness. "Dad, can't we just play a game?" she asked, clutching a brightly wrapped present. "I don't need money to have fun with you." The room brightened slightly, everyone laughing nervously before glancing at Jake. It was a reminder that joy didn't come from financial success, but from the simple moments together. "All right, sweet pea," Jake said, forcing a smile. "Let us play." The game they played wasn't just about cards. It was a lifeline that brought them back to simpler times when laughter came easily and joy wasn't measured by wealth. They were slipping away from the discord, even if just for a moment, the laughter of children mixing with the echoes of their heated debate. But even amid the fun, the shadow of that kettle still simmered. Mary watched as Jake engaged with their daughter, yet the sense of distance still lingered. Would this night heal the wounds, or were they merely papering over the cracks? Jake felt a strange strength building within him, an awakening of sorts. What if he shared a different message with his family, a message not of his financial pride, but of accountability, respect, and authentic legacy? As darkness fell outside, Mary smiled gratefully, but a question echoed in her heart. Could they truly find their way back together? And just then, Jake felt a surge of determination. One step towards reconciliation could start with an unexpected act of kindness. Would he be brave enough to break the cycle and embrace the love that their family truly represented? The clock ticked softly in the background, marking the seconds into an uncertain future that lay ahead. Moments like these, which could define their story, seemed to hover in the air, waiting for one of them to grasp it, to act. What would Jake choose to do next? Jake reached for the deck of cards, his hands trembling with a mix of excitement and anxiety as he shuffled them. Annie's hopeful gaze sparked a flicker of hope inside him. Maybe laughter really did hold the power to mend what had frayed. As he dealt the cards, he looked around the room, taking in the family that surrounded him. Each face held a backstory, a love, a thread woven into the fabric of his life. "All right, everyone, let us see who can beat me," he declared, a cheerful bravado masking the nerves inside. Mary joined in, her gaze lingering thoughtfully on Jake. "You know, Jake, it's wonderful to see you crack a smile again," she said, her voice warm yet tinged with concern. "Family is what matters most. Remember that." Her statement hung in the air, inviting reflection. Jake swallowed hard. "I do remember. I've just lost sight of it along the way," he replied, his heart heavy. Would they ever get past this? Annie's laughter pierced the tension as she clapped her hands in delight at the sight of their ridiculous faces during the game. It was a sound that reminded Jake of simpler times, times when his greatest concern was whether he could win a game of freeze tag. Time slipped by as cards flew and voices rose in animated shouts and laughter. He stole a glance at Lisa, who wore a faint smile. It reassured him, even if the shadows in her eyes hadn't entirely lifted. What did she truly think now? After a round of uproarious play, when the air felt lighter, Jake decided to make his move. "Guys, I want to share something," he began, his heart racing. "I've been working hard, sure, but it's not just about the money I make or the business I run." The card game paused, eyes shifting to him. "I want to share what I've learned this year about responsibility, about being present, about what really matters. And I want to do better for all of us." As he spoke, something shifted in the room. Annie cocked her head, curious, while Mary leaned in closer. Lisa's attention sharpened, a good sign, he hoped. Like spending our weekends together, actually talking rather than scrolling through our phones. Or cooking family dinners, me, you, and Annie in the kitchen, just like when we made those crazy pizzas. Remember? He chuckled, fond memories washing over him in waves. He could see the smallest glimmer of appreciation in Lisa's gaze. I do, but thoughts don't change overnight, she replied carefully. You need to show us, not just tell us. I know, he acknowledged. But let us start now. How about we plan a family trip to the beach? Just us. No phones, no distractions. Just the sand, the surf, and laughter. Annie's eyes lit up. Yes, I want to build the biggest sandcastle ever, she exclaimed, bouncing in her seat, pulling him back to the reality that family dreams were simpler yet richer than wealth could express. Jake felt a surge of courage. Maybe this was how he could rebuild the connection with them moment by moment, laugh by laugh. But deep down, a flicker of doubt remained. What if this wasn't enough? As the evening wound down, laughter still flowed easily, but Jake couldn't shake the worry in his heart. Was he prepared to truly change? Could he keep those promises alive long after the festive lights dimmed? In that moment, as he helped Annie arrange the cards, something cracked inside him, a shift towards commitment. This isn't just a holiday promise, he whispered, mostly to himself. I need this to be lifelong. Outside, the wind howled, a reminder that change would come with storms. Could he weather them and still hold on to this new belief? The clock continued its relentless ticking, and as he caught Mary's questioning gaze, he knew he had a mountain to climb. What awaited him in the days ahead was uncertain, a blend of hope and fear, anticipation and anxiety. But one thing lingered as he glanced at his family nestled together, the desire to foster love and connection. What did he need to do next? The morning light seeped through the curtains, casting a warm glow across the living room where Jake sat, still feeling exhilarated from the night before. He could still hear the echoes of laughter ringing in his ears, the lingering joy filling the empty spaces that had once felt heavy with silence. Each moment spent with his family felt like a gift he was unwrapping, piece by piece. He let out a slow breath, his mind racing with plans for their day. A family trip to the beach seemed like the perfect way to celebrate their moments together. Yet, he couldn't shake off the nagging whisper of doubt. How do you fix years of distance with a single trip? With a growing sense of determination, he grabbed his phone and began making notes. Jake? Mary's voice broke through his thoughts, pulling him back to the present. He turned to see her standing in the doorway, her brow slightly furrowed, a cup of coffee in hand. Are you okay? Yeah, just making a list of things to pack for the beach, he shrugged, trying to brush off the worry tangled in his thoughts. Good idea, she nodded, stepping further into the room. But remember, it's not just about the packing. It's about how you show up for them. He felt a soft pang at her words. I know. I want to be there for them, he replied, the sincerity in his voice catching her attention. Just then, Annie bounded into the room, her energy infectious. Are we really going to build the biggest sandcastle ever? Can I get a bucket and some shovels? She asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Jake chuckled, the heaviness in his heart easing for a moment. Absolutely, Annie. We'll need the biggest ones we can find. After a quick breakfast, they gathered their supplies: towels, sunscreen, and beach toys. Lisa stood in the kitchen, her back turned as she prepared sandwiches. He cautiously approached her, heart fluttering. Hey, are you excited? He asked, gauging her mood. Lisa turned to him, a slight smile forming as she handed him a couple of sandwiches. It'll be fun. I hope you mean what you said last night. I do. I'm really trying, Lisa, he said, his voice steady. Let us make it a good day, okay? She paused, studying his face, searching for the honesty beneath. All right, I'll hold you to it. As they loaded the car, anticipation buzzed in the air. Jake caught glimpses of his family's eager chatter. He felt light, buoyed by shared excitement. But the clouds of anxiety still loomed overhead. Before they set off, he paused, taking in the sight of Mary pulling Annie into a hug, laughing as she spun her around. In that moment, he realized he needed to do more than fill their days with fun activities. He needed to connect emotionally to reassure them that he was truly back. With the engine humming, he made a bold choice. How about we play some music on the way? Something upbeat. He turned on the radio, letting the sound of classic hits fill the car. The mood shifted instantly, laughter and singing bouncing off the car walls. Yet, while the music played, Jake couldn't help but wonder. Could this trip truly begin to heal the scars of their past? Would a day at the beach seal their growing bond or expose deeper cracks? As they drove closer to the coast, the salty air beckoned, promising laughter and connection. But in the excitement, Jake felt the weight of his promise loom over him. He didn't just want a day to be special. He wanted it to be the start of something lasting. Would they be able to bridge the gaps of the last few years? As the horizon opened before them, Jake's heart raced with both hope and apprehension. What challenges awaited them once they reached the beach? The car rolled closer to the beach, the salty scent of the ocean air flooding through the open windows. Jake could feel the excitement vibrating in his chest. Yet, every laugh and cheer from the back seat reminded him of the weight he had to lift, the years of absence, the silent days that had filled their lives. As they parked the car, Annie bolted out, her laughter mixing with the sound of waves crashing against the shore. Jake watched as she raced toward the glistening sand, her little feet dancing with joy. Mary followed closely, her sunny laughter a balm for his nerves. But then, he saw Lisa still seated in her seat, her expression contemplative. "Come on, let us go?" Jake called out, trying to inject energy into the moment, though his heart still pounded with worry. She hesitated for a second longer before finally unbuckling her seatbelt and stepping out. He could see her putting on a brave face, and he hoped it was enough. The beach was alive. Children shrieked with laughter, families strolled along the shore, and the warm sun kissed their skin. Jake felt energized as he moved toward the water's edge, Annie dragging him behind her, giddy with excitement. "Look at the waves, Dad. Can we jump in?" Annie pleaded, her eyes sparkling like the shoreline. "Absolutely. But let us build our castle first," he replied, slipping into the role of enthusiastic dad. They found a perfect spot and set to work, digging and mounding the sand while Mary started documenting the day with her phone. Jake felt the chatter of the moment gradually knit them together. He watched Lisa pull out her phone, capturing candid photos, her smile returning with every click. It filled his heart with warmth, making him believe this trip might just work, that he could finally bridge the gap. They spent the next hour pouring water into dry sand, creating a fortress with impressive towers and deep moats. Annie's laughter rang out with each failure and revival, while Lisa occasionally chimed in with playful teasing whenever one of Jake's plans went awry. He felt light in that moment, blissfully connected. But as they stepped back to admire their work, Jake noticed Lisa turning her gaze toward the ocean. Her face had shifted to one of concern. She looked torn between joy at their lively family moment and the shadows of unresolved issues. "Jake, can we talk for a minute?" she said, her voice firm yet gentle. His heart dropped, caught off guard by her seriousness. Sure. Just a sec," he said, catching Mary's eye, who gave him a supportive nod. They walked a little distance away from where Annie was excitedly splashing in the shallows. What was she about to say? Jake prepared for the worst. Was it about his absence? Was she finally confronting the elephant in the room? "Jake, today has been amazing," but she paused, her brow furrowing again. "What happens after today? Will we just go back to how we were?" The air thickened with tension, and he could feel the familiar discomfort rising in his chest. They had both been working towards this moment, yet here it was again, the fear of losing it all. "I want to change, Lisa. I want to be here for all of you, not just today, but beyond this," he declared, the reality of his promise hanging in the air. "I hope so," she replied quietly, her eyes searching his. But words only matter if they're followed by action. As they stood there, Jake wondered if the day would truly mean a new beginning or just another fleeting moment that would evaporate like the sea foam washing away in the tide. Suddenly, Annie's excited voice pierced through his thoughts. "Dad, look at this big shell I found. Can we take it home?" The innocence in her request tugged at his heart, drawing him back to the moment. He turned to Lisa, ready to make her a promise that went beyond words. "Let us make a pact. This is just the start. We'll do things differently moving forward. We have to work together on this," he said, feeling genuine resolve fill his voice. Lisa nodded slowly, but there was still hesitance hanging around. What if he failed again? As Jake stepped back to join his daughter and wife, he felt the swell of uncertainty creeping back in. Would he be able to keep this promise? The sun hung lower in the sky, promising warmth but casting shadows over what could have been. Each laugh seemed to echo with both hope and worry as the waves rolled back and forth. Just as Jake joined Annie at the shoreline, a huge wave surged forward, crashing around their feet, and in that moment, he felt the pulse of the ocean beneath him. Would they take the leap and ride the waves together, or would they get swept under once again? Annie squealed as the water hit her legs, and Jake felt the rush of joy mixed with trepidation. They were on the edge of something beautiful, but the waves of doubt threatened to swallow him whole. "Dad, look!" Annie shouted, her eyes wide as she pointed towards a flock of seagulls dancing above the water. "Can we go chase them?" Jake chuckled, ruffling her hair. "Sure, let us go." He took her little hand and ran. Laughter burst from them both as they darted into the shoreline, the salty breeze tugging at their clothes and filling their hearts with a carefree spirit that felt contagious. Watching them, Lisa couldn't help but smile. But a flicker of hesitation crossed her face again, and that before was gone. Her eyes drifted back to the water, watching the waves as if they held secrets she still couldn't grasp. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers over the sand, and Jake felt the weight return. He wanted to chase those shadows away, to push through the discussion that hung heavy between him and Lisa. They were standing at a crossroads, and he desperately wanted to navigate it together. But how? "Hey," he said, catching her gaze. "Let us find a quiet spot. Just this for a minute." He led her farther down the beach, far enough to escape the giggles and splashes, but close enough to see Annie still captivated by the chase of the birds. "We made a promise earlier," Jake began, his voice low, earnest. "I know words sometimes feel empty, but if you give me a chance, I'll show you I mean it." Lisa sighed, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "I want to believe that, Jake. I really do. But we've tried before." Her voice trailed off, and she looked at him, searching for a flicker of understanding. "I know I've let you down, and I can't change the past." The sunlight caught the edges of his eyes, drawing a brief moment of honesty to the forefront. "But for the girls, for you, I want to be better. I'll do everything I can to make this right." She held his gaze, weighing his words, until a smile cracked through her worry. "Ugh, look at you being all serious. You were supposed to be the fun dad today." Jake laughed, the tension dissolving a little with that hint of joy. "Okay, fun dad it is." But as he turned back to the girls, the burden in his chest nudged him again. What if it wasn't enough? What if he faltered when they returned to their daily lives? A new wave rolled in, rising higher than the last, and as it enveloped them, Jake reflected on the moment. Fear tinged with gratitude washed over him this day. Filled with love was a chance. Annie came running back, cheeks flushed from the cold water. "Dad, Mom, it's so much fun. You should come join us." Jake looked at Lisa, the corners of her lips curling into a genuine smile. "Why not?" she agreed, pushing her worries aside. Perhaps just for now. They raced toward the water, each step carrying an echo of laughter and fresh determination. They splashed into the waves, each one pulling them deeper into a shared moment of pure joy. Jake took a deep breath, allowing himself to bask in the warmth of this fleeting happiness. But as the sun set, casting a golden hue across the ocean, Jake's heart whispered again. Would the laughter survive tomorrow's worries? Somewhere in the back of his mind, he felt the reality of the conversation still waiting to be had. Could he rise above the tides of doubt? Is there true hope for them beyond this beach? Just as the sky turned to shades of pink and orange, a storm cloud loomed on the horizon, dark and threatening. The beauty of the moment felt frayed at the edges, and Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental was about to shift. What would tomorrow bring? The rhythmic sound of waves crashing filled the air as Jake watched Annie jump and splash in the shallows, her laughter mingling with the cries of the seagulls. Lisa stood beside him, her gaze shifting between their daughter and the horizon, where the sun continued its descent, coloring the sky with streaks of mauve and gold. "Look at her," Lisa said softly, her voice almost drowned out by the breaking surf. "She's so free." Jake nodded, but he felt the heaviness creeping back in. Yeah, it's beautiful. But underneath that beauty was a reminder of what they were facing. The discussion that lingered between them was like a storm cloud, ready to unleash its rain. Annie bounded back to them, her wet hair sticking to her forehead. "Are you two just going to stand there? Come play." With a shared look, Lisa and Jake exchanged a fleeting glance of hope and trepidation. They couldn't ignore the reality waiting for them at home, a home layered with reminders of their struggles. But for now, they were here, together, and the warmth spreading through Jake's chest felt like a lifeline. All right, let us do this, Jake yelled, sprinting towards the incoming waves. He could feel the joy radiate from Annie, and it drew Lisa in like a magnet. They plunged into the water together, squealing as the cold shock surrounded them. The chill made them gasp, but laughter filled the gaps where worries might have lingered. They took turns splashing each other, creating memories that bubbled on the surface of their hearts. Even Lisa, caught up in the moment, squealed as Jake playfully dove under and tossed Annie into the air with a big splash, erupting in a joyful shriek. Yet every laugh felt layered with questions. Were they just delaying the inevitable? With every wave and every laugh, the thought niggled at Jake's mind, could this moment sustain them? As the sun dipped below the horizon, the colors began to deepen. The darkness crept in, and the beach started to clear out, families packing up their things. For a moment, Jake's world felt bright. But with the day drawing to a close, shadows lengthened, and doubts crept back in. They dried off after that last frolic in the sea, and shadows under Jake's eyes were mirrored in Lisa's. She took a deep breath. So, where do we go from here? Jake hesitated, the question hanging like a heavy cloud. I don't know, Lisa, but we can start by being honest. That's a good first step, right? Honestly, Jake? Her eyes met his, vulnerability shining through. I'm scared of what might happen if we dig too deep. What will we unearth? I am too, he admitted, but if we don't talk about it, we risk losing what we have. I want to be better for you and for Annie. Lisa's expression softened, yet uncertainty loomed in her eyes. Are you sure? Because sometimes honesty can hurt. Can we handle that? Jake nodded resolutely. It's worth a shot. We owe it to ourselves and to our family. Okay. She exhaled, her breath a mix of fear and relief. Let us do it. As they walked hand in hand back to where they had left their things, the last traces of sunlight vanished behind the ocean's waves. The darkness wrapped around them, and with it, a sense of foreboding. Jake glanced back at Annie, blissfully kicking in the water, completely unaware of the deeper storms that loomed on land. Would their conversation lead to healing or further heartbreak? As they reached their towels, Jake could feel the weight of their unspoken truths ready to spill over at any moment. Shadows clung to their hearts, even as they wrapped a towel around Annie's shoulders. But behind those shadows, a flicker of hope lingered. How far would their honesty carry them, and what uncharted waters would they have to navigate? Jake felt the stirring of something bigger than them, both a possibility for transformation. But how would they start? What burdens had they been carrying that could finally be released under the weight of that honesty? And as the day faded into night, the answer danced on the edge of the horizon, waiting to be uncovered. Annie twirled in her towel, her laughter echoing in the dimming twilight. The beach was almost deserted now, just a few scattered figures packing up their treasures from a day in the sun. Jake and Lisa sat on the sand, watching their daughter spin like a little dervish, her carefree joy a bright pinprick in the enveloping gloom. Can't believe how lucky we are, Jake said, the words slipping from his lips even as doubt laced his thoughts. Beneath his affection for the moment, a heaviness nestled in his chest, a nagging whisper that soon they'd have to face the truth. "Ya lucky," Lisa replied, but her tone betrayed a flicker of apprehension. As she watched Annie dance on the shoreline, her face was a landscape of mixed emotions. It was as if she was living that familiar line, "I senti it beautiful." But what if, indeed? Jake echoed her silent thoughts, though he would never voice them aloud. The promise of honesty between them felt weighty, teetering on the edge of a precipice. What if the truths they unearthed crackled with pain and regret? Annie ran back to them, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Can we make a sandcastle? Please, please." Lisa smiled, the light breaking through her worries for just a moment. "Sure, sweetie. Let us make the biggest castle ever." Jake joined them, allowing the thrill of their daughter's request to distract him. Together they dug and shaped the wet sand into towers and moats, pouring their energy into each grain. Laughter bubbled up among them, filling the air with lightness that felt almost magical. Yet, as the tides lapped at their creation, Jake couldn't help but feel the waves of his own fears creeping closer. Anita's laughter, the salt air, and sandy skin all wrapped around him like a warm embrace. Yet shadows loomed, echoes of practiced conversations and memories better left dissolved in water. "Look, Daddy!" Annie squealed, proudly placing a seashell atop one of the towers. Her joy reminded him of when life was simpler, laughter easier. "It's a flag. An incredible flag." Jake beamed, trying to match her exuberance. Yet in that moment, a tiny thread of anxiety pulled at him. What about the flags they have to raise on the home front? Flags of honesty and vulnerability. Those stark, white waves of truth. Lisa noticed his distraction. "Hey, you okay?" she asked softly, her voice a gentle interruption of the laughter around them. "Yeah, I was thinking," he trailed off, suddenly feeling the weight of it all again. "About tomorrow?" she asked, her eyes searching his. "About everything. It's like we're building this great sandcastle, but what happens when the tide comes in?" Her expression shifted, understanding filling the space between them. "We can just rebuild," she offered, a small smile breaking through. "Rebuilding takes strength," he said, almost as a challenge. "Strength we have. Together, right?" Just then, Annie jumped in between them, her hair whipping wildly. "Mama, Daddy, look at our castle. Can we get it bigger?" Jake's heart warmed. "We can, but we have to work together. Every grain counts." That was how they navigate their mess together, wasn't he it? They had to embrace the messy but beautiful transformations, finding joy in rebuilding. Despite the tide that threatened to wash it all away, they lost themselves in the process of creating. The darkness of the night closed in, sprinkled with the first stars. Maybe they could find their way, even with fear and uncertainty. But in the back of his mind, Jake questioned if they were truly prepared for the truths lurking in their hearts. How deep did they want to go tonight? Was their love strong enough to hold everything they were about to discover? And as the night deepened and the crashing waves sang their song of timelessness, Jake felt the pulse of possibility. What awaited them in the next heartbeat of their honesty? The waves rolled and crashed rhythmically, pulsing like a heartbeat as the night wrapped its dark, velvety arms around them. Now deeply engaged in their sandcastle construction, Jake felt Annie's laughter stitch a thread of warmth through his frayed thoughts. Every giggle, every shout of excitement from her pequeño frame seemed to push the heaviness aside, if only for a moment. Lisa dipped her hands in the moist sand, sculpting a wall with care. But even her smile had a shine of worry, an urgency beneath the surface. With every flick of her wrist, she seemed to be telling herself that their little family could weather any storm, even if she wasn't so sure of it herself. "Let us make this wall a little taller," Annie exclaimed, darting to her father for another bucket of sand, as if it were a treasure chest. Jake grabbed the bucket, squeezing it tightly before pouring out the silky grains. Watching Annie at work brought a soft blush of happiness to his heart, though a question nagged at him, just beneath the glittering surface. Jake moved closer to Lisa, their shoulders brushing in the cool air. "What if rebuilding isn't just about the castle?" he whispered, gauging her reaction. "What if it's about us?" Lisa paused, her hand hovering over the sand, and then turned to face him fully. "What are you saying?" The question hung between them like low tide, filled with potential calamity. "I just think maybe it's not just about avoiding the floods. We can't keep acting like there's nothing under the surface," he replied, a cautious tension knitting through his chest. "But what if we open that door, and we don't like what we find?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "We owe it to ourselves, don't we? To be real about what we're feeling?" His eyes searched hers, trying to gauge how deep this passage went. Annie returned, arms flailing alive with energy, giggling uncontrollably as she shoved sand into her castle, the castle that suddenly felt symbolic of something much larger and more fragile than they anticipated. "I'm making a moat," she exclaimed, splashing water playfully with a little plastic shovel. Lisa's smile returned, bright and warm, wrapped tightly around the innocence of their daughter's joy. "Perfect timing. We need it before the tide comes in," she said, trying to cover her earlier anxiety, her eyes flicking back to Jake. "Right, before the tide comes in," he echoed, but the words tasted differently now. What tide were they really afraid of? The waves lapping at their sandcastle could be a metaphor, but for what? "Let us make the moat even deeper, so our castle can stand strong," Annie suggested, her excitement bubbling over. Jake and Lisa exchanged quick glances, silently acknowledging a truth they both felt, but rarely spoke of. Perhaps Annie's innocence was the grace they needed to navigate their own fears. They could dig deeper together. But that didn't mean it would be easy. As they worked side by side, the cool sand slipping through their fingers, Jake felt an invincible tide building within him, something raw, edging toward discovery. He wanted to be honest, but was honesty worth the risk? What if it fractured the surface of their carefully crafted world? Just then, Annie stood up, arms raised in triumph, her sandy crown gleaming in the starlight. Look at our castle. Isn't it the best? Can we make it even bigger? Jake chuckled, feeling a burst of optimism amidst the uncertainty. Let us make it the biggest. But in the pit of his stomach, that tension swirled and shifted. Could they truly be ready for the conversation waiting in the shadows? As they continued to mold the sand, a chilling wind swept in, rustling the palm trees nearby, leaving Jake to wonder, was it a sign, or merely the night playing tricks? Deep down, he knew they were standing on the precipice of a crucial moment. Could they muster the strength to jump, hand in hand, facing the tide that threatened to wash away everything? Would the sandcastle withstand the truths hidden beneath their smiles? And as the moon shone brightly overhead, illuminating their efforts, the dawning realization pressed closer, echoing a challenge they couldn't ignore. A question loomed larger than life. Were their hearts ready to embrace the storms ahead? The sun peaked over the horizon, casting a golden warmth across the beach. As the waves ebbed and flowed, Jake felt something genuine blooming within him. Last night, they had built not just a sandcastle, but began to reshape the very foundation of their family. He could still hear Annie's laughter ringing in his ears, a beautiful melody that reminded him of the simple joys they had been missing. They gathered for breakfast at a beachside cafe, the salty air invigorating. Jake watched as Lisa helped Annie pick through her pancakes, her smile brightening the table. "You know, I could get used to this," Lisa said lightly, her eyes sparkling. "I think we should have more family mornings like this." "Yes, pancakes every Saturday," Annie chimed in, her enthusiasm contagious. Jake chuckled, the warmth of that moment wrapping around them like a cozy blanket. But beyond the syrup and laughter, he felt a lingering weight. The real conversation still awaited them. He glanced at Lisa, who was catching Annie up on their plans for the day. Each story she told lit up her face, and before he could second-guess himself, he decided to embrace this moment. "Hey, guys," he said, his heart pounding slightly. "Why don't we continue what we started last night? Let us all be real about what we feel." Lisa's eyes met his, the flicker of concern and curiosity dancing there. "You mean here? In public?" she asked, her voice soft yet bold. "Why not? We've carried our worries long enough in silence. It's time to share," he said, wanting this to be an open dialogue, a new chapter they'd write together. Annie, sensing the change in tone, paused mid-bite. "Are we going to talk about feelings? Is that boring?" "No, sweet pea." Jake chuckled, amused by her candidness. "Talking about feelings is super important. And it can be fun, too." Lisa took a deep breath, her smile wavering as the weight of the conversation thickened the air. "All right, let us try. What's on your mind, Jake?" "I was thinking about last night, about how we all felt." He glanced at Annie, grateful for her lightness in this moment. "I've realized that the money I thought would protect us really built walls. It felt like I was chasing something bigger when all along, what we needed was each other." Lisa tilted her head, challenging him with her gaze. "You've always worked hard for your success. It's not something we can ignore." "I know, and I don't want to ignore it. But we need to make real changes that bring us closer, not just on special days." He felt the surge of hope rising in his chest. "What if we made a promise, like a family rule, that no matter what happens, we check in with one another? No more running away or hiding." Annie perked up. "Can I make a rule too? I want to have family game night every week." "Done." Lisa laughed, her tension lifting. "That sounds wonderful. It'll be our rule." Jake felt courage blooming anew, recognizing that this was the start of something profound. "I want to be fully present, not just physically, but emotionally. Whenever one of us feels lost or upset, we don't just brush it aside. We share it." "But what if it's hard?" Annie asked, her brow furrowing. "Then we figure it out together," Jake replied, his voice steady, reaching for Lisa's hand. She squeezed it, a flicker of understanding lighting her features. "And if it gets messy?" she added, voice heavy with concern. "Then we get messy. We'll embrace it head-on. That is what families do. We build our castle strong enough to weather every wave, he said, a spark of determination igniting in him. Annie squealed with delight, jumping up. Yes, we're super builders. The small cafe was filled with the sound of laughter, the atmosphere relaxed and charged with newfound possibilities. Jake realized it was no longer just about the words, but the sincerity behind them. I love you both so much, and I'm ready to dive into those tough conversations. It's about building together, right? Just like our sandcastle, every grain counts. As they wrapped up breakfast, Jake felt lighter, as though a part of the heavy storm within him had finally cleared. He looked around at this beautiful moment, grateful for the love and the raw honesty they had begun to cultivate. After breakfast, let us chase some more waves, Lisa suggested, her earlier hesitation fading, replaced by support and joy. Okay, and we'll build an even bigger sandcastle, Annie added enthusiastically. Jake grinned, feeling his heart swell with warmth. They were embarking on a journey, not just toward a beach, but toward healing, understanding, and love. Challenges lay ahead, no doubt, but he was filled with a renewed sense of hope. As they washed their hands, he could almost hear the waves whispering this was just the beginning. He felt grateful, and above all, he was ready to embrace the adventure that was family deeply, messily, beautifully, together. And as they rushed back toward the shoreline, laughter echoed, painting a perfect portrait of family love, anchored now in shared truth and cherished moments. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait, not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.